Okay, so in Matthew 7 verse 24 to 27 it says, "But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on the sand." Now I'm pretty sure all of us has heard this parable before. In the Bible, Jesus gives us a lot of parables, but this is probably one of the most important parables that there is. God and his words are the rock on which the wise man builds his foundation. By building your foundation on the word of God, you are setting yourself up for success. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 6 mistakes that you are possibly making that is preventing you from building your house on the rock and that is causing you to build your house on the sand. Okay, so the first major mistake you can make is by denying the existence of God. And I've put over here Psalm 53 verse 1. So in Psalm 53 verse 1 it says, "Only fools say in their hearts, there is no God. They are corrupt and their ways are vile. There is no one who does good." By denying the existence of God, you are setting your life up with no clear sense of direction. You have no moral of what is right or what is wrong. Okay, so the second major mistake you can make is to refuse to obey God. And over here I've put in Matthew 7 verse 26 and John 14 verse 15. So in Matthew 7 verse 26, it talks about the foolish man who built his house on the sand. But then further, in John 14 verse 15, it says, "If you love me, keep my commands." Now, there's this quote that I really like. It goes, "Delayed obedience, partial obedience is still disobedience." You know, as a follower of Christ, and because you're on relationship with God, it is your job to obey and glorify God in every single way that you can. You know, by disobeying God, you are going against everything that God has done for you and what God has planned for you. And ultimately, you are setting yourself up for failure, just like the man who built his house on the sand. Okay, so the next biggest mistake you can make is by trusting in myself instead of God. And over here, I've put in Proverbs 28 verse 26. So in Proverbs 28 verse 26, it warns us that those who trust in themselves are fools, but those who walk in wisdom are kept safe. You know, it's much easier to go with your gut. It's much easier to do what you want to do. But I want to ask you, how many times has that worked out for you? Every time you said, "I'm going to do this alone," and then it actually has worked out. You know, for me, every time I think I know better, every time I think I can do this on my own, I fall down and I get humbled. Why? Because God knows better. He knows way more than I do. And sometimes it's just best to let go, let God. Okay, so the next major mistake you can make is by following false ideas. And over here I've put in Colossians 2 verse 8. So in Colossians 2 verse 8, I'm going to read this out of the Passion Translation. It says, "Beware that no one distracts you or intimidates you in their attempt to lead you away from Christ's fullness, by pretending to be full of wisdom when they're filled with endless arguments of human logic. For they operate with humanistic and clouded judgments based on the mindset of this world system and not the anointed truths of the Anointed One." Now, this world we live in is filled with lies and fake ideas about what is right and wrong. And it's much easier to listen to something that comforts us. It's much easier to hear about how we are such good people, how our relationships are fine and everything in life is just going great. It's so nice to hear that. But when we hear something a little bit uncomfortable, something that hurts us a little bit, we get offended because deep down we know that is the truth. You know, nowadays it's so hard to distinguish between what is right and wrong because this world doesn't know love. It doesn't love like Jesus did. So the only way to really know if you're following the truth is by reading the manual of life. It's by reading the Bible. Now the next major mistake you can make is refuse to thank God and glorify Him. And over here I've put in Romans 1 verse 21. So Romans 1 verse 21 says, "For although they knew God, they never glorified Him as God, nor gave thanks to Him. But their thinking became futile, and their foolish hearts were darkened." Now, I did my research and I found out that futile means void. It's vaporous. There's an emptiness. Now, the idea of this is that the minds of those who don't glorify God are empty. It's a nothingness void. The refusal of thanking God for everything that He has done for you leads to a soul that is empty and it darkens your heart. Now, the last mistake you can make is putting money and things before God. And I've written down here 1 Timothy 6 verse 9. So in 1 Timothy 6 verse 9 it says, "Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with having a lot of money. I too wish that one day I'll be wealthy so that I can take care of my family, that I can take care of other people. And there's nothing wrong with it. The problem comes when you put money and materialistic needs above God. You see, money and temptation fall in the same spectrum. The more money you get exposed to, the more you want it and the more you crave it above anything else. But as soon as these cravings become too large, as soon as these materialistic needs become unmeasurable, you've missed the plot and you are ultimately making a god out of money and out of materialistic needs. You know, the best way to avoid this is by putting God above everything else, putting him above all of your materialistic needs and wants, and by glorifying God in every single way that you can. And then one day when you have accumulated the wealth, one day when you have made the money, then you thank God for everything that he has done for you. How can you give back? How can you give to people that have less than you? And then ultimately you are glorifying God in this way. Okay, and that was everything in this video. I hope you have learned something, and then I pray for you this week that you'll be strong and courageous and that you will obey God in every single way that you can, and that you'll glorify him everywhere where you go. And yeah, you must have a blessed week, my friend.